Hi, I am Margot from the Bcln Talk Show. Today, our topic is safety and injury prevention. With me today is George.
Thanks, Margot. Safety and injury prevention is it's a massive topic, and our focus today is personal safety for face-to-face situations with other people in the community.
Right, this is a very important topic for everyone. If we know possible lures and tricks used by abusers, gang recruiters, or predators, we are better able to avoid them, to understand safety rules, and to stay safe.
Yes, were you aware that sometimes a person that you know can trick or lure a youth? This can and does happen, and of course, it is harder to have set rules to avoid situations with people you know.
These people often ask for secrecy and make the victim feel guilty or responsible when they are not. Let's talk about what tricks and lures are sometimes used by known people and think about some safety rules.
Someone you know may offer you special attention and affection. This trick can be hard to detect. It may happen slowly over time by someone you know or known and trusted, like a relative, a peer, or a babysitter.
Yes, George, there's a big difference between normal, healthy affection and fake affection that is leading to or resulting in abuse. A person may offer extra compliments and really work at gaining trust and affection just because they are an important part of your life. This is usually the case. However, occasionally, someone can be doing this to build trust because of bad intentions.
Yes, and it is very important to report any inappropriate touching in the bathing suit area zone or any uncomfortable request to a trusted adult. It should never be kept a secret.
Who likes treats and presents? I know lots of us that like treats sometimes. Often, special people show up with home baked cookies or little gifts for everyone, or on special occasions such as birthdays or an awesome report card, a treat may be brought for one person. Is this a problem?
Good question. Usually, this is not a problem. However, if offers of candy, gifts, money, or electronics are made to one person in exchange for keeping an unsafe and possibly abusive situation a secret, then it is not okay.
I see. There is a big difference between guests or family friends bringing something special to share that is presented in front of everyone than an attempt at a bribe in exchange for something inappropriate. So, the strategy would be to never accept gifts from strangers and not to take gifts from someone you know as a bribe for something that is not okay. This may be common sense for many people, but it doesn't hurt to hear it again.
Don't you just love games? I never turn down a chance to play a fun board game or even just to play catch in the backyard. This seems like a strange thing to call a lure or a trick.
Games are supposed to be fun for everyone that is playing. Games that involve being tied up or put in handcuffs, ropes, or duct tape are not okay, especially when a youth cannot escape or protect him or herself. Games that involve inappropriate touching are not okay either. If someone pressures you to play a game that you are not comfortable with, then don't play.
I see. I think your instinct will often tell you if something is not quite right about a game or a situation. A general safety strategy is that if something doesn't feel right or if someone can escape or protect him or herself, then that person should not agree to play, right? That is a sensible safety rule.
A lot of this seems like common sense, George, but even so, when something is actually happening, sometimes it's hard to know how to react if you haven't thought about it before. I don't like the idea of threats.
Nobody likes threats. They can be scary, especially if someone is told he or she will be in big trouble if anyone finds out. It may seem obvious that the abuser or exploiter would actually be the one in trouble, not the victim, but victims are often too scared to think logically about everything.
Yes, that would be frightening. Again, this sounds like something that should be reported. That would be an important safety rule. Report threats. Most coaches, teachers, religious leaders, and relatives are good people. However, there are people in the news occasionally in positions of authority that have used their position to do something that's abusive or unsafe.
Certainly a sad situation. A person in a position of authority does not have the right to be abusive and should never use a position of power or authority to insist that children take part in unsafe or abusive behaviors.
Yes, and this takes us back to the strategy of reporting. This has to be reported to a trusted adult.
When talking about people that you know, it is hard to have clear rules for avoiding lures and tricks. What about when it is someone you don't know? A stranger that is trying to lure or trick you into a possibly abusive or exploitative situation.
Any situation like this is frightening, whether it is a known person or a stranger, and some of the lures or tricks are similar. Knowing them can help to understand safety rules and to avoid unsafe situations. Let's explore these ideas further. A stranger may use the assistance lure.
Indeed, you may have heard of this lure. A stranger may ask for or offer help as a trick to get a child to talk and to get close to the child. The stranger may ask for help with directions or with carrying something.
This is why a good safety rule to follow is to walk places with at least one other person.
Yes, and to tell your parents where you are going, to phone them when you arrive and when you leave to head home.
Great ideas, George. A stranger may use the lost item lure.
Again, most people are not bad people. However, if a stranger asks you to help find a lost pet or item, run away and tell a trusted adult. There may be no lost puppy, kitten, or ring. That stranger should not be asking a child on his or her own for help. That stranger should know better than to ask a young person.
Of course, if you walk places with a friend or a group and let your parents know when you arrive or leave a place, then you will be following important safety guidelines. A stranger may use a gift or bribery.
Yes, offers of candy, gifts, money, toys, or electronics may be offered to a child to either go with a stranger or to keep an unsafe and possibly abusive situation a secret. This is another way a stranger can try to lure, trick someone. Thankfully, if you are watching this broadcast, you will be aware of this possibility.
Again, a stranger should know better. Did you know that this is more likely to happen to someone who is out alone? Again, the old saying, there is safety in numbers, is true. A stranger may use the "it's an emergency" lure.
This is a technique that is a little harder to resist. A stranger may pretend that there is an emergency. For example, a stranger may say, "Your father was hurt and he sent me to take you to the hospital."
Here's a popular strategy to handle this technique. Many families have a code word that a stranger must know in order for you to believe them. Of course, many families would not send a stranger for you either. A stranger may use name recognition as a lure.
Marking a child's backpack, bag, or clothing in an obvious place can be dangerous. A stranger can read the child's name and use it to make the child think that he or she must be familiar.
Nowadays, many teams put a first or last name on a jacket or bag. If you have to head out alone, then maybe wearing that jacket or carrying that bag is not a good idea.
That is interesting, Margot. Not everyone thinks of this as a hazard. I think I'll save those items for when I am out with my team or with my family.
All of these things are quite creepy, George.
Yes, they are. But if young people follow safety guidelines, many threats can be avoided. And if a young person feels threatened or is actually abused, it is important to remember it's not your fault.
Indeed, the victim should not make excuses for someone else's inappropriate behavior.
Or blame him or herself.
Finally, sometimes victims fail to report an incident. This allows the abuser to create more victims.
So, what should a person do? Let's take a look.
Ask for help. Always ask for help from a trusted adult, whether you are sure or not. Sometimes this can stop a possible problem from escalating into something worse.
And sometimes it may feel awkward to bring up a situation and ask a trusted adult, like a parent, for their advice or help. Are there other ways to do this?
Sure, a phone call, note, or email that explains the concern, event, or situation can sometimes be easier than a face to face conversation, as long as help is asked for, one way or another.
Thanks. Here are just a few final items to share before this episode of our Bcln talk show ends. You know, abuse is never a child's fault.
Yes, and a child should never feel ashamed or scared to get help.
Kids have a legal right to stop anyone who tries to abuse or exploit them.
They sure do. Finally, trusted adults, sometimes even the police, can put a stop to an unsafe situation once it has been reported. Thank you for joining us on the BCLN Talk Show today. Have a safe day.